Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman. I am the streamer for this stream, and we work on a Django app. I teach you what I know, and as I work through the process of building out a side project that I'm doing for my family. It's a homeschool application, and it's built using Django, as you might imagine. So we're going to continue on that project tonight. I've got a bunch of views that I have to make. So if you're new to Django, feel free to ask questions. That's what I'm here for. So you can ask me anything about Python, Django, web development. All of that is where I'm most experienced probably and best equipped to answer your questions. And this is meant to be interactive as necessary. So please use the chat as long as you keep it civil. Before we get started, I should let you know about a couple ways you can get in touch with me if you need to. I have a Discord link below, so if you've got long questions that you would like some answers to that don't fit in a Twitter tweet, that sort of thing, that's a great place to go. I'll do my best to answer. I'm not always there, but I do check it regularly, so that there's some opportunity to have some conversation there. I have a website. The URL is listed above. You can join a mailing list there. I've got content written about Python, about Django, all those sort of topics as well. And finally, if you want to get more directly in touch with me, I'm on Twitter as MB Lehman. If you want to support me financially, I'm on Patreon as MB Lehman, and super grateful for folks that contribute that way. Thanks to Eric, Ahmed, Mark, Patrick, Rob. The list is starting to get longer, and my short-term memory is not holding them all in my head as easily as I used to. But I appreciate those that give in that way. That's awesome. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about where I'm at and how we're going to continue tonight. Last time, if you joined in, process to start a new feature. I can speak to that briefly. Let me outline like the thing that I want to get to tonight, and then I can back up and talk about how I got there. So last time on the stream, I was working on this page. And I talked about how this page is going to be kind of a central page for the planning side of this application. This is a homeschool scheduling app. And then I described it as two different stages. There's a stage where my wife, who's the teacher in our house for my children, will be executing the plan. So she has this primary weekly view, which will show all of the activities that my children need to do. And this is like during the week, her mode of doing stuff. But during the weekends, she has to switch into a planning mode where her focus is different on what tasks are coming up, what needs to be modified, tweaked, what needs to be marked as done. And that is this view right here. So last time we talked about getting the school year. We built in some of this information. We added to the context. We added some buttons. And then what you didn't see is this view down below here that is something that I added after the stream. It was just a pure list of items last time, and I've expanded it to this kind of cards format with added some data. I'm now noticing on a smaller screen size for the stream that there's still some opportunities for making this better because it doesn't look great when it wraps. But this is what I did. So the point of this stream is to continue on what I've got and just dig into the next level. So Git checkout, you asked me my process for starting a new feature. It depends on the feature. And that's kind of the weaselly computer science answer of it depends, but I'll try and make it a little bit more concrete. The new feature development, it matters like what the source of those ideas come from. For instance, you can see here on GitHub where I keep stuff, I've got a couple of milestones. And we can, I don't know if GitHub will let me view all of them, but we got a couple of closed ones that I did. So I would say the primary way of like starting on features is talking to your customers. In this case, my customer is my wife, so that's a very easy conversation. And I had the core of a product and presented it to her and said, hey, can you use this for a little while and see where it's deficient and what's wrong with it and what can we do about it? And those are the most fruitful conversations for building an app, in my opinion, because like you're not going to get any better feedback than the feedback from the person that's going to use your tool. That would be my first recommendation. If you already have the kernel of an idea and you've implemented something and you can start getting direct feedback from your potential users or your actual users, start there. So that's one category. User feedback is where to go first. The second area, and what I've got as my other two milestones, are frankly more of ideas that I have had, thinking about. I know how to build enough of apps. I've been around enough software as a service applications to know things that I'm going to need, things that may not be pertinent to my spouse because I'm going to do some extra hand holding for her, in the sense, not, she isn't a very intelligent woman, but in the sense of helping her be, since she's my first customer, get onboarded as well as I can. But knowing that if I want this tool to be ultimately something that is self-service for any other homeschool parent who happens to sign up, there are things that need to be done. And one of those things is an onboarding flow. And so, I took a break from it for a little while, but I can show off, some of the, whoops, I don't even see my Gmail. Come on now. I said that this was going to be a critical feature of my site, and it needs to guide someone along in the process of everything that they need to do to get started. So for that, I had already kind of worked out with my spouse what are the core bits of information that are needed. So I knew that the data that needed to be filled in there. And for thinking about starting the feature, it was a plan of what is the most logical set of steps in order to get someone to be successful with the application. So in that sense, I guess, how would I describe that? I guess it's starting from the data model and working to user interaction flows, or just the thought processes around what is the app experience that you want to have. So I didn't make flowcharts. I didn't do any of that. I just said, I kind of operate in a very iterative and agile manner. So I started with something small and I expanded it, and then I expanded that and expanded that. So that's my process on working on an app. The other ways that this can change depends on the team size you're on. Like for me, there's no point in making a flow chart because what I want to do is already up here, and I don't need to communicate that with anybody. If I did, I'd start questioning myself. And I don't need to document it for anybody in the future because I'm not working with a team of people. So that doesn't really add value. But if you're working with a team, that's a different story. So, if you need to communicate features of what is this going to look like, maybe a flowchart's a great tool. I'm certainly not going to knock them. I love a good chart, especially when it's used to communicate information with people. For instance, I'm actually here in the next week or two, I'm going to be joining a local hackathon that is building an application for some local community groups that are here in Frederick, Maryland, where I live. In fact, I've even thought about taking a break from my app, if it's appropriate, and working on the hackathon app for the stream. I don't know if that's going to work out. We'll see. But that's the tentative plan. In those scenarios, it's going to be working with a team of people and people with different skills. And in terms of starting a new feature there, that's a totally different conversation. I think a lot of it boils down to writing stuff down. I'm a big believer that you should write down the basics of what you want to do, and I've done that a lot on this stream. I'm very transparent in my process here, and I don't know that it makes for riveting content, but sometimes I get into GitHub and I start writing issues in GitHub and typing out my thoughts. And I found that typing out thoughts is a very powerful tool to kind of drive features of like what do we need. So that's the framing, some framing that I have for working on features. And in fact, we're gonna let's use that. Let's see an example of that in action, so you get an idea of how am I getting the features done that I'm getting done. I am using GitHub here in a very lightweight sort of way, and you can build in checklists into GitHub issues. In fact, I can show you what that syntax. So it's a bit of it's markdown syntax. But if you want to go in and add a new item when you're doing stuff, you do a star and then an open square brace and a space and a closed square brace and the thing that you want to add. And that just gives you a little thing that you can check off. I don't know that everybody finds that useful. I do. Because now when I look at this issue that's not done yet, I can say, why is it not done? It's not done because I don't have a link to the add course when there's an empty state. So if we go over and look at the corresponding page that this maps to, which was this page, and if we go to the bottom, I've already have the sample grade. So one of the things that I added was, and some of this builds on top. So I've got this checkbox here that says an empty state when there's no courses. So after a user adds to the grade, adds a grade level to my school year, this is part of the modeling that comes in with this. And if you're new to the stream, I apologize for not giving you full context, but it's just data that needs to be added. I wanted to give them a nice experience to say like, okay, here's the next step. Here's the next thing you need to do. And I added this empty state, put in a little bit of copy, and I added this button. But this button doesn't go anywhere yet. And that's the next thing. So each one of these things is kind of building on top of the other. And then, ultimately, when I check all these off, presumably my first version of this school year page will be done. That's why this one has a lot to it, because this is a very core page in the entire process. So there's a lot to do here. So that's the way I'm working through this. And hopefully that gives you some idea into the way I think about this kind of stuff. If you want me to expand on anything, get check out, just let me know, and I can dig into that more a little bit. Okay, so let's look a little bit of code. What do we have here? So I was working on the next view. Oh, cool. Good luck. I was working on the next view for the app, and in order to make this link do something, so again, we're working from the checklist to drive this out. The checklist item says add a course, a link to a course page when there's no empty state. So that means that there has to be the page that will actually let me add a course. I could stub it out with something, but I'd rather go somewhere meaningful. So kind of backing through the dependency of that means that this button needs to go to something. And that's where this chunk of code comes in. So I already have, well, here's the code. I'm showing the git diff version of this, so that's why it's all green. But just to give you an idea of stuff that I added offline while I wasn't streaming. It's a new view, and it's using the Django create view to get going. It has the login mixin. It has a template that we need to work on, but I'll get to that in a second. And it's got all this other stuff. And a lot of this stuff I was able to put in here quickly because there's already an edit view. And so let's see that. Where can we see that? Nope, not here. Oh, I was right on that page. I made some changes, and so I'm getting myself oriented to my own changes. So there's this edit view for a course. And when this view shows up, and for some reason my local server takes a little while sometimes, I'm not sure what's up with that. So this is the view that I already have for editing a course. And there's not much here yet, and it's not even the full set. I need to come back here and make some important additions that need to be here. But it already has the basics. It's got the name of the course. It's got when the course runs, all the days, because this is customizable. So like the example that I use over and over again is like a music class or a PE class that doesn't run daily. And you can set it just to be just that day. So those two pieces of information are pretty critical, and they also are going to be used on a creation page. Like the same information is needed when you create a new course in the system as when you edit an existing course. I happen to do the edit page first because the data that I have already in the app was pulled in from a different app. So I did a web scraping exercise from the tool that my wife currently uses, and I already have a bunch of data. So I needed to modify that. But thinking about a scenario where a user is going to be starting from scratch, that's where I'm getting to this add course step. So my hope is to reuse as much of this template as I can, because it's all the same information, and that means I have to like kind of fiddle with two different states in the template of, is this for a create page, or is this for an update edit version of the page? So a lot of the bits that you see here come from that edit view already has like things that I know that I'm going to need to add. Like I know that the form, this particular course form, which already does a bunch of validation on the course data, it requires a user object, for instance. So that's why all of these extra methods are already here. And when I wrote this up at the time, I planned to like actually make it work. Like right now, I don't think this will be accurate, and it doesn't have any tests. So the first thing I want to do is get down to testing, checking it out, making sure that it has the guarantees that we expect. And once we have the test prove that we can create a course, then we'll make the template the right thing. And then finally, when the template is all correct and we're able to add courses, we're able to edit courses, and they share the same template and they look great, then I can finally go back to that school page and edit that link on that button so that it points to this new view. And that's the process that I've been doing for all of this milestone. It's all of these pages that I'm building are pages that are necessary for anyone to build out an entire school year for their home, including the grade levels that their kids will be in, the courses that their kids will be in, tasks, and all of the stuff that gets associated in this one big bundle of information. That's where we're going, and that's what my plan is tonight. So hopefully all that makes sense. If you got any questions about it, just let me know. So we'll start by going to the courses views file where that new view exists, and we can talk through a little bit of it. I don't want to belabor too much of it in case you already know about class-based views, but just to give you an understanding of some of the pieces that are in here. We can also bring up the test views file because we're going to need that as well. Yeah. All right, this is a good starting point, I think. So class-based views require a template. That's step one here. So the template is that, and a create view in particular requires either a model with the fields that you want to create and be part of that, or you can provide a specific form class that you want to have the create view use. In my case, because of some of the data that is in my course model, I needed to create a custom form class that can handle some of the special state. Initial here is initial parameters that you want the form to have. So what I'm saying in this initial data is that you saw all those checkboxes in the edit view. I want the default state for a new created course to be checked for Monday through Friday, because I figured that's when an average school course is likely to run, is Monday through Friday. It's an assumption, but it's a very reasonable one. Because the template ultimately will be switching between a create mode and an edit mode, I'm adding some context data to the view so that will be available. So I'll be able to use that as a Boolean in the template. And then I had to think about, right here, what goes into the form. And as I said, I know that course form, and I know that what its initializer requires. So we have to inject the user. And then finally, thinking about where is this going to go after this is successfully created. is I want it to go back to this main school year page. So like they're done, they're ready to move on to the next thing. The other option that, well, now that I think about that, this might not be the right spot. Because if you create a course, you probably want to go do something with it, presumably. Like you want to be able to, in the flow for this application, a course is a collection of tasks that a student will do. So you probably want to be taken to that course page that you can start adding the tasks that you want your student to do. So that might be a better spot to go. So and that would be the detail page for the course. So let's call that the course detail page as the destination. And we'll get back to this. So we have to write tests to make this stuff work, and that's just a note to myself for now. What else we got here? So I think that's all the pieces that are in this view. It's not a super advanced view by any stretch of the imagination, but there's some bits in here, especially if you've never messed with class-based views before. This might be new to you. So let's start by taking this test case that's for the detail view, and let's tailor it to the additional view. I always start with a check for unauthenticated access. Everything in this application requires you to be logged in. It's not useful. Aside from some marketing pages like the home page, there's very few unauthenticated places to go. So in order to do that, I have a test here that will do a check on that access. It's using Django Test Plus in order to do that. That's where the assert login required comes from. It's not coming from the built-in Django test case. It's coming from Django Test Plus. And Test Plus is a really cool tool, so I'll give them a little plug here. It's an extension package that you can install, and it adds a bunch of things to the test case class that comes with Django, so that you can do some certain assertions and get access to data that is it's accessible to regular test cases, but not as easily. And so there's just some niceness that comes here that comes from using Test Plus. So I started using it on this project. I hadn't used it in the past, but I really like it. I think it offers some really, really good value here. So we've got courses create, and since I already hooked up this view, and just so you can see the full thing, I had to hook up the URL as well. So here is the course create view, and it's got a name of create, and it's in the courses app name namespace. So this is the reverse on it, this string here of courses : create. This test should already pass. And good, it does. I'd be worried if I got that totally wrong, although, typos happen. So the next thing to check is that a GET request will work. And so we've got this example. This next test is a test GET, and we don't need any of this data because it's about adding a new view. So again, we'll delete the data that's from that detail view because that's not needed yet. And we'll change this to create, and doesn't require any parameters. So all of this should be good. And I think while I'm in here, I mentioned that the create view is going to need this context, and I don't think I need to write an extra test for that. I think what I can do though is we can assert that that thing is there and is true. So we'll assert get context create. And again, get context is a method that's been added by Django Plus. And the way that I'm writing this, I'm also using PyTest. So if you're using a standard test case that doesn't use PyTest, you would have to write this like assert. Well, you could write it a couple ways. Using Django Plus, you could write this in this way of assert context create, and then has a value of true. That's one way that you could have done this. The other way to do this would be to say self assert true self, get context, create. So they're three ways to write the same thing. In my opinion, this way is the most clear because I like PyTest in the way that it does asserts. So I'm going to use that, and we'll check then that it still passes. Good. So in terms of code coverage, we have checked that this is there. That's correct. And in fact, I think we also, because of the way that the create view builds stuff, and because of the fact that the form I'm using has an init that requires a user, we've also validated that this user thing is there and is required. So if I rerun the test, it'll probably fail. So maybe I'm wrong here. Oh, you know what it is? Maybe it's in that comes up in the post. That's curious. Why did that? I'm wondering why that worked. Because I didn't expect it to work. Because if we look at the course form, oh, ha, okay. Because this didn't do the checking that I thought it did. No, that's not true. I'm sorry. We're going to go on a little tangent. So there's that. Yeah, okay. I guess the way I wrote this, it doesn't need the user. So right now, well, that's good to know. We didn't actually require this. So let's pause for a minute and think about the model just to know if I'm actually going to have the user. I might not even need the user to do this. I'm guessing I will, but we'll see why. So the course itself has, really only a couple attributes, and some of them are already covered. So the fact that it's a subclass of this days of week model form gives it that ability to do the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday checking. Okay. And the other thing is we're using, this form is also a model form. It's built into the name. And so the fact that we're setting the meta with a model of course and the field of name means that those things paired together have all the information to work on a course. But what's noticeably absent from this right now is processing of grade levels. And grade levels are a many-to-many field for courses, which means that there's actually a separate table that is keeping the mapping between grade levels and courses. And those, I think, is something that we'll have to add separately. I actually don't know how model forms handle many-to-many relationships. That's really an interesting thing. So we're going to go learn. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do. So Django model form. Or no. That's not what I wanted. Yeah, that is. I'm sorry. Let's see if we can search for many-to-many in here. Oh, okay. A model many-to-many field is represented as a multiple choice field. Okay, cool. But what are those choices? That's the question. So we're going to need to set that field to have the right query set. Because courses, in order to be useful, they need to be connected to a grade level. And one of the things that I want to check on this form is that a course is attached to at least one grade level. And so that will be an additional requirement and validation that we'll have. but I'm curious if we can let the model form do this in our own way, or if we have to do this separately to get the right query set. I'm not really sure. So let's go read up on Django forms. We're really getting up into the rabbit hole today. Django forms, what was that? The model multiple choice field. So we have to give it a query set. But what I don't know how to do, it has to be the right query set. In the system, we're only able to do, you're only able to get grade levels that are related to the user account. So, if two users make different grade levels, there's no point in showing some other person's grade level. So the grade levels that are shown need to be associated with the school object that is associated with the user. That will do the proper filtering on the right choices. Additionally, I'm trying to figure out how much do I need to filter the grade levels down even further. Imagine this scenario. Someone's been using this application for years, and the structure of the models, which we can see. Come on, models. Somebody's been using the application for years, and the way this is structured is like a big tree. And a user has a school, and the school has multiple school years. The school years have multiple grade levels. So if you're planning for a new course for a new school year, which grade levels do you show? Ideally, you would want to show grade levels for that particular school year. It kind of makes me wonder if I'm putting the course view adding in the wrong spot. Because if I want to display the right grade levels to choose from, we need to be able to filter to the proper school year. Because in an example where someone's been using the app for years, you don't want to show like the grade levels for all the school years that you've been a part of. In my house, I have two kids, and right now they're second grade and kindergarten. So I can see the scenario where if my wife starts using the app this year, and then 2 years down the road, she has a different second grade instance for my younger child. When she's selecting the course to go into that grade level, if I didn't do the proper filtering down to the school year, then which grade level does she pick from? Because it would show all the grade levels, and there's going to start to be some repetition since there's students that have like overlapping years. Hopefully that made some little bit of sense. If not, just trust me that we need to, I think, filter grade levels to school year. So I think that leaves a couple of paths that I can take to this. I can either make it so that the path would look something like this. I'm just going to type it in my terminal so you can see it, but we'll call it homeschool app. I don't have a URL, a domain name for it yet, but it would be something like homeschool app, and then schools is where all of these courses are defined. Actually, that's not true. Courses is where we have it defined right now, and this view to create is going to live at the root of courses. That's where this is going right now. So one option is to do as a query parameter, we could pass in a school year or a school year and give it a UUID, because I've got all of my model records are using a UUID. So that's one possible, and just that's very clear, That's one possible URL format that we could have. The other is if I want to tie course creation specifically to a school year without using query strings. And I'm kind of tempted to say that this one might be better. So let's try this again. So now we're going to do this from the point of view of a school year. And so that is at schools. School year is where all of those are. And there's a UUID. Oh, I guess that's interesting. My Z shell is putting in escape characters there for me. That's very odd. I didn't type those, but you get the idea. There's a UUID, and so that by itself, like it is shown currently, would be the detail page for the school year. And so maybe adding a course for that lives at courses like this. So now when it comes time to populate the grade levels, I can dynamically get the school year from the UUID, and I can build a query set for that multiple choice field for grade levels that is coming from this school year. This is starting to feel like the kind of URL that I want, because what happens? If I have this scenario where it is the courses URL, as in the one that's shown 2 lines above, if I've got courses, what do I do when the query string is not provided? It's not going to make any sense, because I'm not going to just show all the grade levels at that point. That doesn't seem like a good alternative. And I suppose I can make it default to the current school year, but then it just starts to get weird. So I think what I want to do is I want to change where the course creation page lives to be somewhere else. And I'm feeling a little torn about this, because I think there's going to be some odd implications to that. So let me think on this for a minute. And the odd implications, to call them out explicitly, is that these all of the views related to schools right now live within a school's URL file. And the logical grouping there is, where is it? There it is. So it's all in here, and they're all the school year views and all of that stuff. But the view that we're talking about is in the courses application, and the courses app has a URLs file itself. I'm starting to get too many screens, but it has its own URLs file, which is where kind of course views currently live. So if I take this stance of putting a course creation view in the schools area, it's starting to cross application boundaries in a way that feels a little yucky. So maybe I'm talking myself out of this. This is why you talk through some design things sometimes, and you all get to be my rubber duck, I guess. And again, if you have any questions, ask me. If some of this is not making sense, I want it to make sense to people so that you understand what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish. So this is making me lean back towards this mode where it's this kind of style. So I think what that's going to do is I'm going to create, I'll do a query set that will use the school year if the UUID is provided. Otherwise, I will try and get the current school year. I think that's a reasonable alternative. So I added something to a model. Which model did I do? There's somewhere there's a current school year method. I don't remember what model I added it to. Well, maybe I didn't name it that. I know I created this thing. If I was looking for this, what would I be? Latest? It's bad when you already forget your model names. Nope. Okay, well, let's go to the place where I think this model method would exist. So on the school's views, this is the current school year view. Oh, I didn't put it out yet. I think I thought about it, but I didn't actually do it. So I had some logic in here that basically said, what is today? And see if you can find a school year that fits in today, as in it has a starting day before today and an ending day after today. But there's this other case where if you're a brand new user and you are creating your school year for the very first time, you're probably not gonna make sure that you're starting as you're building out your school year. So you also want to look to the future as well, to say, is there any school year that starts after today if you can't find one that you're currently in? And so that's this logic right here. And I thought I extracted it out of the view because that's a good pattern to extract things out of views and don't have a lot of logic in your models. A lot of logic in your views. But I haven't done that yet. Okay. So we're getting deeper and deeper and deeper, but I'm starting to build out, I think, what this thing needs. I think before we can advance to creating this view properly, I need to do a refactoring of this view here, this current school year view, to pull out the ability to get the current school year for the user. And by doing that, then we'll be able to proceed to the course view and ask for the current school year if a school year UUID is not provided. So we'll have that as the fallback option. And yeah, I think that's the right path. So let's ignore, for the moment, all of these other view things that we have. Then they are working. The tests are working right now, so that's not so bad. I guess we need to rename this view to create view before moving on to the next thing, so my editor is happy. But this is a good cleanup. So refactoring is something you should be comfortable doing, especially to minimize the amount of duplication that you have. Because if I didn't do this refactoring and I took this chunk of code, or worse, I rewrote code and wrote it differently, then the same concept of what is the current school year would exist in two different places and could have slightly different answers. And I don't think that's great. So we're going to replace all of this logic that is on these, 12 lines or so, 11 lines, and replace it with a single method. I think I want this to be, well, what do I want this to be? Is this going to be a class method on the model or a manager method? That's sort of just getting down to semantics of where to put something. So maybe what we would say is, what could we do? We could say, let's comment this out just so you can see what I think this ultimately looks like. I think this eventually will become this. We'll say school year, and we'll say get current year for user. I think that reads well to me. And this can come back and be none, or it can be an instance. The same, it's just this logic extracted, basically. That feels right. And it feels like it will help capture this pattern of current year, like actual year or future year, if that's appropriate. So that logic will apply all over the place and can be a useful thing to use. So we're going to create a class method on school year that does this. So let's open up the schools models file. And we'll come down to the school year. Oh, okay. Let me pause there. Why am I putting it on school year? Because the other way I could do this is I could say school year equal user dot get current school year. And they're both, if you look at them closely, they're both kind of saying the same thing. It's just your point of view. And one is saying, I am the user, give me information about my own state of the world. And the other is saying, I am the thing that tracks all school years, give me the latest school year for this particular user. Same thing. Why is one better than the other? Well, one's not better than the other. It's a choice. I'm making this particular choice for a reason. And the reason is this. In applications like this, SaaS applications, the tendency is for the user, whatever kind of modeling you have for working with the user that exists in your application, for that model to get out of control, get tons of methods on it as it talks to different things in your system. Whatever domain you're working in, doesn't matter. I happen to be working in schools, but I can tell you firsthand that the medical company I work at, the user class there has a lot of things that it works with. It talks to lots of things in the system. And that model has gotten too big over time because it's a company that's been around for years and years. And so as a principle for myself, I try and, if I'm picking between two models of where to add a method for a model, I pick the one that I think is going to be more infrequently used, more specialized. And I think what that does is it kind of evens out what will go, where your model methods end up. So if you put a lot of your business logic into your models, which is a good place for them to go in a Django application, then following this paradigm of putting your method in the most specific model, I think is going to be a win for your applications in the long term. So if you're curious of why did I do this one versus this one, that's my motivation. And it's worked for me. So that's why we're going to go with this, putting it here. So we've got our school year, and we're going to make a class method. And we're going to give it the exact same name of get current year 4. And it's going to take a user. Oh, that's not going to be self. Oh, hey, Daniel. Welcome. Thanks for joining in. And thanks for your book, by the way. It's awesome. I see you're also doing some Twitch stuff recently. I'm curious I haven't gotten a chance to tune in, so I'm curious what you're doing over there. And so we'll say get a current school year for the user. And some people might harp on me a little bit about adding a doc string, which seems so repetitive, but I like doc strings. I think they add value in ways that people don't even appreciate. Because what I'm going to do in this circumstance is add a little bit of color, a little bit of extra context. Books, sweet. I'm going to add a little bit of extra context that I think will be useful, because future me is not going to remember why did I do this with the getting a user in the future. I mean, maybe I might, but you give me a long enough time and I won't remember. 'Tis the nature of being a developer. So grab pick the current school year if it's available. If not, look ahead to the future. Why? This is the important part. Answer why in your doc strings, because if you just say what it's doing, then you're not just repeating the logic. Cool. Thanks for joining in, even if only briefly. So we want to look ahead to the future, and we want to look ahead to the future so a user can plan appropriately for the new school year. That's kind of what's happening. And I think I've sort of documented this in other places, other spots in the application. So I'm maybe being a little bit repetitive, but I think that's okay. Oh, here it is. Even I put it even in the view. So I think this starts to become less useful to duplicate that. So I do believe in getting rid of duplication. And now that I'm pulling the logic out of the view, it might make sense to pull this commentary out of the view comment. But let's just lift and shift this over here. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it over here. We're going to uncomment this stuff. The important thing that I've left out right now is this actually needs a return. If I didn't do that, then the method would fail. I do have really good test coverage though. I've got 100% statement coverage, so we would notice very quickly if it wasn't working. And this comment doesn't feel very accurate anymore. So before it had the logic for that a user could see, or not a user, that a developer could see, that shows like, why are we doing this? And so saying there's still no school year, that doesn't ring true anymore. So now let's do this. When there is no school year, not still, I think the rest of that comment still sounds accurate. Yeah. And let's try testing the suite, see how it goes. Ooh, failure. Oh, failure because that's that other view that we haven't built yet. Okay, so I can accept that one failure because we'll get to that. It does mean that this current school year view is working correctly by doing this replacement. So this felt like the right change for me. I'm not going to add, I could add a type annotation. Maybe that's valuable because this thing, it's going to be useful to know that this could come back as empty. So do I want to do that? Good question. Well, yeah, why not? So if you've never seen type annotations before, here you go. We're going to add one. We're going to say from typing, import. I want to do this this will make sense in a minute, I promise. And we want to do optional. So then we're going to do, well, no, we've got the user model there. So we don't need the type checking. I won't explain that part, but we've got the optional. So we've got user and we've got optional. And if we come down here, we can annotate this. So we can say this user is a user instance. So the user above is the class, and this particular variable is an instance of that class. And then we want to say that the return is going to be an optional school year. Oh, rats. Why are you doing that? looks like the school year hasn't been defined yet. Here's where I'm a little out of my depth, because I'm using the optional type checking stuff for Python, but at work we just happen to still be on Python 3. I know we're really close to getting, or excuse me, we're on Python 2 and really close to getting off of it. But so we do type checking in syntax in comments. So I just haven't hit this problem yet of what do you do when you need to reference the class itself that you're currently in. So into the rabbit hole we go. Python 3 cheat sheet. I want to find the example where they will allow us to reference a class in the class. If you use the string literal a, okay, so it looks like we might be able to get away with it by using a string. So it's saying this thing will fail because it's not defined yet. And so that will work because, like, notice that class A is defined later. It's not quite the scenario because we're talking about a class, but the way that Python resolves this is Python is trying to work through the class method definitions. And so it hasn't populated the actual class yet. And so if we try and reference the school year, it's like it's for something that's not parsed yet. I don't know how else to say that. I don't even know if this is fully accurate because I have not run MyPy on this stuff. So I might do that later just to check and make sure I'm doing a proper type check here. But I think this is right. But why did I do this? What was the value of adding a type annotation? What I want to be abundantly clear to my future self is that this thing may not always return a school year instance. And by knowing that information, it means that when I use this, I have to be untrusting of this school year variable. It could be the value of none, or it could be a school year model record. It's not guaranteed to be a school year model record though, so then we have to put in the appropriate guards, because if you get none and then I tried to use an instance method on the school year on a none, you're going to get the famous none type exception that says, that method does not exist on none. So I think that type annotations for that are really useful, just to keep you honest and keep you aware of what's going on. And so that's why I'm adding this here. And just to make sure that syntax is correct, I'm pretty sure it is, but okay, just running the suite again. All right. And I'll leave this comment. It's a little redundant, but I'll leave it. I don't think it's hurting that much. So now we have our new method that is available. And that method gives us the opportunity to have that fallback for when we need to get to the course view. And so I think we're ready to figure out how to make that course view appropriate. I still don't use some of the Django create view and update view and all of these views a ton. So I am inexperienced with certain aspects of it. This many-to-many field is one of those examples. So we're just going to stumble through this bit together. And I don't think we're going to get to the template tonight. I've already been going for an hour, and so I think a good spot to stop for the evening would be to kind of get the Python code for this view done, and then I can come back to the template part and clean that up later. So that's sort of where my head is at right now. Let's close the school models file and check out where we are. We'll open the course view again. And I think what we need to do is extend our course form. So let's bring up the course form as well. And that course form is going to require grade levels. That's the many-to-many field. So let's add that here. Grade levels is not going to be a required field. So I don't know if there's a way in the model form definition to make that required. I don't know if there's some kind of validator that we can add that is a minimum required or something like that. Or if we're just saying required equal true, I don't know that will work, but we can try. And does this test case still going to fail? Okay. It's failing on a template error. Let's get past that. We've got the templates, and it has there's a course edit template. And this is the one that I'm going to modify. It's one you saw earlier that was showing me editing a course, and I just need to rename it. It's not just, it's something that's it's something that needs to be done. So we're going to call it course form. And that rename is going to break one of my other views. So there's a course edit in here somewhere, I know, for the course edit view. So we're going to change that right now to be form. And if we run the suite now, well, we got more failures. So now it's getting interesting. The course edit view is now failing. And why is it failing? Let's take these one at a time, because I think I'm getting confused. I don't know if this exception is going with the detail view or the edit view. So this is one of the failing tests. So the template itself is doing a reverse, or it's trying to do a reverse on detail, but that is not found. And it's probably somewhere in the template that we're going to have to go find. And it's probably some context that the edit view gets, the update view gets, that is not going to be available for the create view. So we'll come back to that course form template, and we'll look for URL. Yeah, here it is. So what's happening here is the object is available to the edit view, but for a creation view, the object doesn't exist yet. So trying to access a Uuid object it's going to return a none in the case of a template, because the template will let it silently fail there. But what's not going to happen and not be successful in failing is the URL template tag is not going to be able to resolve course's detail with a Uuid of none. It just is a pattern that won't match. So this is where we need to add in that context variable that I mentioned. So if it's a create, we're going to go somewhere, and if it's not a create, then we're going to go somewhere else. And that's where we can safely wrap this so that this view will pass for the create view. So we've already got the create context in there, and I am going to want a cancel button probably for this, and it's a question of where do we send them? Where does the cancel go? So the user will be creating a course from the school year page. So I want to probably send them to the school's current school year page. So by doing this, we've now given a valid cancel place, and we haven't changed the edit view, so the edit view should still work. Although what was curious is there was still a secondary error. So I suspect it had, I was foolish. I changed two things at once, and you don't do that. If you're doing test-driven development and your tests are fast, and they should be pretty fast, you should be able to change one thing at a time, run your tests, and change the next thing. So that's what I should have done. So I'm suspecting that this will fix the failure with the template because we've now made the template better. But I suspect that if I take out the grade levels, now we'll probably get the whole test suite passing. Is my guess. Yeah. Okay. So what I don't understand is why did the test fail when we had grade levels in here? What is it about grade levels that caused a particular failure in that test file? So let's go back to the test file, find which one it was. It was the test of the post on the edit view. We've got a course edit view. We're testing a post, and it's failing. So this is where I didn't do a great job of writing the test, because what's failing is something that is really, it's a side effect. It's downstream of the real failure. What I didn't get from here is the real error that came out of this thing. I'm not sure there's a good way to figure that out, though. Maybe there is. So let's see if we can pull it out. So let's say I'm going to just print it out because I'm feeling kind of lazy. And the view should have a form in it. And I'm going to try and access the errors attribute of the form. So presumably there was a failure in the submission. The post data didn't validate because we know that the reason that caused the failure is that I added a grade levels field, and that's not that's the only difference. So it has to be a form error from the addition of the grade levels field. But I don't know the specifics of what's failing about it. I don't know if it's expecting something. I really don't understand. So what I'm going to do is access the form. Aha. This field is required. I don't know why, but okay. Because I thought, why would I think that that's not the case? Let's go back and look at the model. Grade levels. As I said, it's a many-to-many field. So a many-to-many field means that the data to track that connection between a course and a grade level is in a different table. That's how you have to do it. You have to, the other table is going to be the pairs of this is the course, this is the grade level, this is the course, this is the grade level. That's what allows it to exist in a single course. I don't know if you can see my fingers. I don't know how, when it gets cut off. A single course can point to many grade levels, or vice versa. A single grade level could point to many courses. By being in a single table, that's what an extra table, that's what allows that. So I thought because of that relationship that a form would not require this. So it's very curious to me that that's showing up that way. And yeah, we'll have to dig into what's making that so. I'm curious if I change this to be how would I change this? I'm going to put the grade level in the post data. And I don't even know, frankly, I don't know the form that the post expects this in. I don't know if it expects it as a list, but this is what I'm going to try. So I'm going to grade level on the primary key like this and see if that's, hey, there it is. Okay. Okay, so that's super fascinating. It's awesome in some regard because that's exactly what I want. I want a course to always have to have at least one grade level associated with it. What happens if I had this be empty? I wonder if that would also, maybe it's just expecting the presence of the grade level's key. No. Weird. All right. Neat. We're going to add that and say hooray because this is necessary. I had to put this in a list because grade levels can be multiple choices. And if you don't put it in a list, I don't think that would work. Nope, wrong again. I'm learning all sorts of stuff tonight. So it must be able to accept either. I wonder if we could, because this is the edit view. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we've added grade levels as an extra field that we're saying we need. And now we need to make sure that the right grade levels are presented to the user. As I said, that has to come from the school year. So I think that's going to need to come down in this form keyword arguments. Maybe. Either that or I'm still struggling on where to put the query set, because if I leave it empty, is it going to try and get all grade levels, or is it going to get none? I don't know. And maybe it said, does it? Oh, a single argument is required. Query set. Let's see if we can learn a little bit more about, see an example of this thing. The model choice field. So this is when you have just one that you want selectable, like a foreign key or something, I would presume. But they still don't show a query set. That's really fascinating. Like, I love, it's like ellipsized. And where does this go? All right. So, okay, what could this be? If you had if you were doing this yourself and you're adding this field, you could have grade levels equal forms, multiple, what was it? It was this one down here. Model multiple choice field requires a query set. So you could say query set, and then I could say something like grade level objects all. All right. So that's probably what along the lines of what they want you to do. But this has a failure in my mind. And that failure is that the query set that we actually want to apply here is something dynamic. It's something that's based on who are you right now. So I think what we have to do, most likely, is change this to none. And then when the form initializes, we need to overwrite the query set that's there. I think that's the strategy. So yeah, I think that's feeling right. So in order to get this properly, we need to import the grade level. Grade level is going to come from schools. So we'll say homeschool dot schools dot models import grade level. Okay. The next thing to do is to override the init. So we have the init method, and it has those usually take keyword args, positional args, and keyword arguments. And I know that we're inheriting from a model form from this days of week model form, so we are going to have to call super and call init with star args and star keyword args. Okay. So far, so good, I think. Okay, now this is broken again. What did I do this time? Let's bring it back. Let's print out the error again and see if it's something else this time. Get context, form, errors. Ah, okay. We're on the right track. We're on the right track because it's saying you have to select a valid choice. Why is 1? 1 is the primary key, is the ID value of the grade level that was generated by the factory, and it's saying that's not a valid choice. That's an interesting error message that's not going to make any sense to a user, so I'm not sure why that's being presented, but that's a digression. But I know that that's not it worked previously, because in the previous version, and again, I'm changing two things at once, which is very foolish. In the previous version, we didn't have grade levels defined by ourselves. So what it was doing, I believe, is trying to do a query on all grade levels. So I think if we come back here, this test will probably pass now. No. Oh. Yep, it passes now. Okay. So by switching it to this none query, we're saying that there's no grade level that you could pass in to satisfy this. And that's where we need to change the query set on our form to be a dynamic query set, a query set that matches the right set of options. So how do we get the right grade levels? And that's where we need the school year, okay? Or yeah, that's where we need a school year, because what I really want to do is say that the form, it's going to be something like this: query set equal grade level objects filter, and we need to pass it the right school year, so it's school year and equal school year. We don't have that yet. So the school year is either going to come from the user, as we've said, or may come from whatever the latest is, right? Well, that's the same source. So what I want to say, whatever the UUID is. Sorry, it's getting a little late, and I'm getting a little loopy. So we're missing two pieces of data right now. We're missing the school year, and we're missing where to set this. And I remembered I've done this in the past. I'm just trying to remember where it is. It's something like you access the fields of the model, and then you set the query set parameter. So it's this. I don't think this is right, but it is something along these lines where we need to find where the fields are actually stored and set it. Or you know what? Maybe it is right, and let's just take a guess right now. So let's change the query set, if we can, to be grade level all, and see if I'm on track. Nope, I'm not. All right, so we got to find out the thing that we're missing. It might be on a meta attribute. This is where we need to dig into the form itself a little bit to figure out what is it I'm missing. So I'm going to do the brute force thing, and I'm going to print out the dir of self. This is what I love about Python. Like, when you don't know, sometimes it's best to get the documentation, and I'm sure we could find that. Sometimes, though, you just want to like dig into the class, because like it's there in my head. It's close, but I just don't quite remember. So I'm hoping that by staring at the dir, the attributes that are available to this class, that one of these will jump out to me as the thing that we can take advantage of. And if not, then we'll go read the documentation. That's something that we could do too. So I was looking for like a meta, or there is a here, meta. I think it's got an underscore, but I do think it's like public API. Django form meta. Yeah. This is the model meta. So maybe that's not what I was thinking of. Django form dynamic query set, if I could type. Oh, you know what? Looks like it was the right thing. I just did it too early. So there is a fields, but it has to come after the super, because you got to let the form do all of its work in initializing. So by this point in time, before the super call, none of the class, the superclass stuff. Hey, welcome, Odorel. If you got any questions, let me know. We're working on a course form right now. But what I was saying is, like, none of the fields are available to the form yet, because none of the superclasses run yet. So if we put this after, then that might be the right place to go. Hey, the test passed. Cool. So this is the way to, and this is one of my least favorite parts about what do you do when you have dynamic stuff. You have to like override the initializer and you changed it from one query set to another. It doesn't, I don't know. I just don't care for this particular aspect of forms. The Django form system is generally really great, but it's, making these things are hard. It's not perfect. So we've got now this place where we know how to set the query set dynamically on the form. And what we need to do next is set it to have the right filtered query set that's pertains to the user. And I could do this, well, let's just get back to what I had before, and then we'll fill it in with the right thing. We've got school year, and that would be the right thing. but we don't have the school year attribute yet. So what we can do, I believe, sorry, I'm just looking over something quickly. So this form is not getting user yet, but that's okay. We can change that. Let's take the user and put it in the edit form, because that's the test that we're running against right now. So we've got the form keyword args. Actually, it's right there. I don't even know why it's here. It's not doing anything in this edit version. And let's add the user to it. So if we do that, then we come into this and we add the user. So the user is now accessible to the course form. That's what the get form keyword args does, is it's collecting everything that it's going to pass to the init method of the form. So now we can do something. Now we can say school year, and school year is, what did I say? What did I call that? Get current year for user. We need the school year. Okay, and let's put those two next to each other. Run the test. And it still passes. That's really cool. So why is that really cool? It's really cool because now we're doing a filter, and the only people that have access to this school year is the user, because in the process of what that class method does is it does filtering on school years that apply to that user's school. And so that means that we can't access our neighbors' school years or schools or any of that stuff. So the query set that's going to show up in this form is just the right grade levels that apply to the school year. Now, if you recall though, there's still a flaw in this, because school year here could be none, and that's not a good thing. So we need to do, I'm trying to think of what to do in the error cases here, because we have an error case where this could be none. And if you recall even further back, I said that this was actually going to be like the backup case. So it's possible, two things are possible to happen. It's possible that there is no school year provided via a UUID in the query string for the form, which we haven't even put in yet. It's also possible that that the school year for this method will come back as none. So in both of those cases, I'm not really sure what to do yet. So part of me is tempted to say, don't do anything, don't worry about it. Maybe that's like trying to bulletproof my code too much. But I don't know. I'm such a completionist in that regard that I want to have something that I never have to revisit, especially when I know that there's a flaw here now, and I can think about it and fix it now rather than way in advance. So how do we take care of this? I can make it so that the form could raise a problem, but that doesn't feel very good either. Because if you came to this page and this page gave you like a 404, like what a crap user experience that would be. Like, it wouldn't be your fault as a user that you hadn't put in a school year, or the UUID was missing, or something was up. That's pretty terrible. So that doesn't feel like the right solution. The right solution seems like if there's no school year at all, current or future, and there's no school year provided in a UUID, there should be some kind of redirect. And I think the only way that we're going to be able to do that is do a little bit of checking in advance. Is that the right answer that I want to have out of this? Let's rethink this a little bit, because there's a layering problem here, and the layering problem is that if the behavior is to do a redirection, then the form, in my opinion, is the wrong place to do that redirection. That is logic that exists above the form. The view layer in the system is the layer that thinks about HTTP. So redirects, 404s, that kind of stuff happens up there. And if you try and do redirection or 404s deep in your business logic or deep in your forms, you're going to get burned someday. A good example was like, let's say I put a get object or 404 deep into a model method. And I think this might even be something that I saw from 2 Scoops of Django. So if it is, props to them. But I want to say, like, if you have a model method that is doing some kind of HTTP interaction, well, what happens if you're using a background worker service that's not even doing HTTP? It's just doing interaction with your data models in your database. A 404 exception means nothing in that context. It just is totally meaningless. So it's the wrong kind of place to raise that sort of exception. So I think what that pushes me to is to do a little bit of this checking in the view, and to make sure that the preconditions before even creating the form are there. So what does all that translate to? I think that what that means is that in the form keyword arguments, what I really want to do is not pass in a user. I think what I really want to do is pass in a school year, because this is the place where I have the opportunity to say, if you don't find a school year at all, send them somewhere else. Was that right? I'm trying to find the right place to do the actual redirect. Because this method itself even gets deep into the form building. So I think we're like still kind of buried in the levels. And it's one of the flaws, frankly, of the class-based view system, is there's a lot of methods to use, and knowing where to put the logic sometimes is tricky. So I want to think through this a little bit more. And I know thinking, well, you just got to think sometimes. And that might mean pregnant pauses on a stream, but I apologize. I want to bring up the classy class-based views to look at this and see if there's a method that springs to mind that I should be using that's going to be right for both the create view and the update view. Because here's where these views get kind of out of control. All of these things are part of this. They all play their role. Where do you do a redirect? It's a good question. because they kind of all have their specific data contract that they expect, and I'm leaning more and more toward one of the higher level methods here. Maybe as high as dispatch, but I don't know. It's just nothing's feeling right to me. Okay. This has happened to me a few times on the stream where I'm like logically stuck. And part of that is the time of day. Part of that is like I don't know the right answer. And you need to give your brain some time to process things. So I think what I'm going to do is this. I am going to pack in a version, the thing that I said I didn't want to do, but I'm going to put a special comment in there because I know myself and I know that on my own personal projects, I won't leave a to-do in place for a really long time. And it will be a reminder to me to try and find the appropriate solution. And I can come back and tell you what I found. Because I am really curious of like, you know, with this problem of when you have some preconditioned data, this is a generalized problem. Like we're talking specifically about a school year, but I think this problem does generalize. When you have a precondition that you need to send your user somewhere else if some kind of preconditioned data is not met, in this case, a model record not existing, how in a class-based view do you send them to the right place? That's the question I'm wrestling with answering with this class-based view system. My lack of appropriate knowledge for class-based views is I think the contributing factor here. So we'll put a to-do comment here that says, what about when there is no school year? And that'll be a signal enough for me to go fix this. And I hope to be able to report back of what I find. Because my speculation is that it is one of these methods. One of these methods, if I dig at the source code long enough for class-based views, it'll start to become clear of here's an opportunity to raise an exception that is appropriate, to do a redirect, or something along those lines. But I don't know what that is right now. So apologies for kind of like spinning my wheels there, but you know, even capable people, hopefully that doesn't sound arrogant, even experienced developers, I'll say that's true, no matter whether I'm capable or not is your determination, but even experienced developers can get stuck. Okay, so what do we have that we can finish off this stream and end this thing? We've got our course edit view, and now I know as well that we are going to use the user for now for the create view because it has to pull a school year. And to prove that, in fact, let me show rather than tell. So this is commented out, the user's not there. If I try and run this, we'll get some errors because it says you're missing a required positional argument user. And that's what the keyword args are doing here. By adding it, it makes user available to the form init method. So now if I run this, those two tests pass. Cool. The other thing that we want to check is the actual post. That's the other thing. The post, I think, is going to be really, really similar to the post from the create view, or the edit view, excuse me. So let's steal it. Let's use that as a starting point. Seems okay. And so we have our post, we have some data that we put in there, And I'm going to switch this to create, and we'll delete the UUID because that doesn't apply anymore. And the rest of it might be, oh, no. We don't want to have a course generated. So we need a grade level. And we're not going to refresh from the database. We're going to pull the course that's available. So I want to say, get. I want to do a get on, we'll say course objects get, and we'll do grade level equal, I think this will be right. Whoop, nope. Field ID expected a number. Oh, because, what am I doing here? Okay, so the reason that get worked there is because there's only a single course. If I had two courses, if I had two courses like this, then get would return a multiple object error kind of instance because there's two things that match that pattern. So by using get, it's a way of in my test signaling that I want to get just one, and if there were more than one, then it would fail. So this is a guarantee that the course that's created here is the same course that's coming out of the create method, because nothing else in this test is creating a course at all. In fact, I specifically commented out so that to show that it's not creating one. So we've got our data in here, and we've got the name of the course, and it's not really a new course name anymore. It's just the course name. So we'll make that more reflective of what it really is. When the course is going to run, I'm saying it runs on a Wednesday and a Friday. That's functionality that's coming from the days of week model form that I'm basing this off of. And then the other thing that we're confirming is that the grade levels were specified here. And since I did a filter essentially on the particular grade level, I know that association was correct. So that tests the post and kind of gets us to where we need to go. Oh, I guess we also have, I told you I do get back to to-dos. This was a to-do I added. I haven't committed this thing. And I said that this was the wrong path. We want to go to the details page. So where this needs to be is really courses and detail, and the arguments to that are going to be the course UUID. And I think the course, oh shoot, what is the course named after it's created? So the create view attaches an object to to the view after the creation, and it's probably given a generic name. So course is probably going to fail, although it might not. We run that same test, but yeah, it says it doesn't know what course is. So I'm pretty sure it's object, but it might be instance. So we'll do a quick check on the view to see what's available. And there's object. Is instance on there? Instance is not. So I'm pretty sure that the thing that we want is actually self.object. And we actually need to test that this is correct. So we'll say, we'll get the response. We're going to check the response is a 302. That's what a redirect HTTP status code is. And we also want to check the location matches. So I'm going to actually put this after because I need the course object. And I want to say that the response location, how to do this properly. We're going to do a reverse on courses detail and UUID equals course UUID, and we want that to be in the location. The location is the HTTP header that tells your browser where to go next on a redirect. So if Django should set that header appropriately, and the URL should be in there. Oops, but now I need to change my assertion because I changed the name. All right, cool. I think my brain is like sufficiently melted, so that's a perfect place to stop. We can get rid of that to-do. What do we not do? Let's talk through that. I didn't touch the template at all, aside from a little bit to make the template exception error go away. The template content itself is not right yet. Like we've got unit tests proving that the view will work if you pass in the right data on a post, but there's no way that the template is passing in the right data. There's no notion of grade levels to display. None of that's there yet. So the next thing that I need to do in order to complete this is do a big pass on the template, add in the extra grade levels, make sure that I can do I'm essentially doing integration testing to make sure that my user interface and my backend logic for the view are in line with each other with the expectations of the data contract that is expected on the form submission. And once those things are in place, then I'll have confidence that the system works. But that's something I can work on offline. I also need to resolve what do I do about school years and answer that weird question about what happens when you don't have the right precondition data. That was a lot. That was actually a lot more than I anticipated talking through today. I see my time here. It's looking like nearly 2 hours, which is way longer than I normally stream. Thank you all for sticking with me if you did. Hope you learned something. With that, I think I'm going to sign off for the evening. Hope you have a great one. Stay safe out there. Yeah, take care.